Hello guys and welcome to the new lesson. This one's going to be on layers. Everything about layers. I know this course gets a little technical at times and you just can't wait to get to drawing, but I promise you this is going to be worth it because it will save you a lot of time in the long run to know what possibilities you have with the program. Just trust me on this one, okay? So right now we're going to talk about layers. Let's just start by opening a new file. Yeah, this one's good. Okay, so to access layers, you will just go to this setting right here where you can access your layers. And it's usually going to say background color and layer 1. So whatever you select, this is the layer you're working on. Obviously, if you have ever worked in any digital media software before, you know this. But I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Here is Procreate layer 1, which you can rename. We can click and it says here rename. So once you click on a layer, it has some additional options you can work with. We already went through one of them, which does not belong here because we don't have grids turned on. But if we were to go here and turn on the drawing guide, we would have one more additional option that only appears when your drawing guide is turned on. And we already went over it. If you selected your lines and drawings will be based on this grid. Cool. Okay, let's turn it off because we don't need it right now. We're just going to go over a few things. How to create a new layer. Here is a plus sign. Layer 2. Perfect. Now you have 2 layers. How to move them around? Just like this. You can move them around. You want this to be at the bottom, you go to the bottom. What's so special about background color layer? Well, for one, it's a little different, right, than other ones. These ones are gray automatically because they are transparent. And this one is filled with color. If we turn it off, you will notice that everything changes and everything seems to be transparent now. Well, that's because it is. And if one day you decided to create this beautiful sticker of a heart, then this is the file you need to create a sticker. If this is your file, you can't create a sticker because then you have a background color. And this way you have it transparent, so you would just save it like as PNG or something, right? Cool. So background color is also special because if you click on it, you can't actually draw on it or anything. All you can do here is automatically select any color you want to be working with. But if you don't like using this, you can always turn it off and have one layer. Oops. And have one layer underneath that's going to be your background layer. So let's say we turn it off. We make this background layer and we just fill it in. So that's another thing I want to talk about. If we click on here, let's just select a different color. We can rename it, which we already know. There's also a fill layer option. If we click on fill layer, it automatically fills our layer with that color, whatever color we have selected. We can also then change it, click fill layer, and it fills it again. So this could act as your background color that you can also draw on if you wanted to. Now, the next option we have, select. We click select, it automatically opens the select tool that we already covered, and it selects only what's on this layer. And then, if you wanted to, you could adjust it or fill it with a different color, whatever your heart desires, right? So that's how it selects just these items. You can just fill the layer, and if I click it, that's going to fill the layer as it was before. Okay, then we have clear, which deletes the layer. Then we have alpha lock. All right, this one is really important, and I will cover it in depth in a different lesson because it deserves its own lesson. But if we click Alpha Lock, you will notice something happen to the thumbnail, so pay attention. Alpha Lock, we have squares around our drawing. Now, what that means is that this drawing that we have is locked. If I wanted to draw on a side right now, I wouldn't be able to. However, let's say I wanted to give a shadow to this heart. If I start drawing here, nothing happens. But as soon as I go over the actual drawing, I can draw on it. So it just locks this a particular place that you've already drawn on, that you can only draw within that particular drawing now, but not outside it. And so if I click fill layer now, it only fills the layer that's locked. Only fills that part that's locked. This is really cool, really useful, especially for creating characters and creating paintings, and we'll go over that later, but I just want you to know that's how you can access it. We can mask, so let's just go back to our regular layer, which is not alpha locked anymore. And masks work just like they would anywhere else. They only work with black and white. Black means erase, and white pretty much means don't erase. So black means show, white means don't show. And this is the parts that are going to be hidden. Masking. It's pretty cool. And then you can also invert the mask and just keep the other part, or you can clear and just get rid of the mask. So by the way, about getting rid of layers, you can swipe on them, you can lock them, duplicate them, and delete them. So let's delete this mask layer and let's lock this layer. So here we have our heart. We're going to lock it. What that does is, if I wanted to draw on this, I wouldn't be able to, and it's going to pop up, locked layer selection. The current selection contains locked items. Would you like to open layers? Cancel or open layers. When I open layers, it doesn't automatically unlock it. You have to swipe again and select unlock. So pretty much you can't touch it. And this feature is a lifesaver. One time I had a sketch, right? So I had a sketch and I was like, okay, I'll just have this beautiful sketch and I'm gonna add ink to it later, right? And while I was adding ink, I forgot to open a new layer. So I was just like, oh yes, this is a beautiful ink drawing. And then I'm gonna print it off after I delete the sketch because I don't want it to look messy. And when I went inside, I realized it was on the same layer, so I could not delete the sketch layer. My ink drawing wasn't clean. I could do other stuff with filters, which I have done, but it was a pain in the butt. It's not worth it. So if you have a sketch layer or any layer that you don't ever want to touch, lock it. Okay, just a piece of advice to save you suffering that I had to do. I had to have a lot of suffering with different stuff, but now I know more things and it's much more easy. All right, so this is that. Lock, duplicate. I want this heart to be duplicated. I can duplicate it like this, and then I can move it around if I want, right? So we went over this. We can delete. We can rename, select, copy. Let's say copy. And then if I wanted to paste it in a different document, I would just go to a different document. And I was like, that heart looks so cool. I really want it on this painting. And when I click on settings, image, I can click paste. And here I have that heart. Move it all the way up. Here it is. Here I have this beautiful heart that I copied from the other image. So you can copy paste between all these Procreate files, which is really cool and sometimes really useful. We already know how to fill a layer. We already know what clear means, which is clearing the layer. We can alpha lock, we can mask. We can drawing assist, which we went over already. We can invert. Cool, right? Now we can merge them down and combine them down. This is two different stuff. So if I merge down, check out this. We have layer 2 and layer 2. Not the best, right? But let's merge them down, and now they're on one layer. And when I make effects to both of them. But if I don't want it to be on one layer, but I still don't want it to take that much space, then I can take this layer and click Combine Down. Now I can turn them on and off at the same time without having to do so for each one. But they're on different layers, so I can still affect them both separately. And if at any time I wanted to do something about this, there's different ways I can do, right? So let's just go back a second. This is a group. We created a new group. And the stuff we can do with the group, we can rename it. We can flatten it, merge down, combine down. So if I merge down, this is what happens. It just merged the two layers together. But it still kept them in the same group. Right? I undo it. Now, if I want to create it as one layer, I can click flatten, and now it's one layer. Another way you can create folders is by selecting a layer, swiping it to the left, right? So it's selected. Then I'll take the next layer, swipe it to the left. Now they're both selected. Now I can select the next layer, swipe it to the left. And if I click on this icon right here, it made a new group out of all of the items I selected. This is super important. Let me show you it on here. So at some point in my drawing, I had maybe like 15 layers that I really didn't care about, right? So I had like 15 layers that combined the same artwork. And let's say they were sketch layers and different hairs and whatever. And there was so many of them. What I would do, I wanted them in one group. And what I would do is I would select the layer, go over a different layer. It turned blue and I release. Now it's in one group. Then I would take the next layer and release. Okay, that's a group within a group. See what problems you have to deal with? And release. And select and release. And now it's a different group. And then I had to deal with this. But all I wanted was one group with all of these layers. So I have been doing that of selecting and dropping for maybe like half a year while I had iPad Pro. And I've had to do this very many times. Like, it was crazy. And I was so frustrated because I couldn't get it to where I wanted it. So select, drag, select, drag, select, drag, select, drag, select, drag. One group. So much easier. Boom, done. I wish I knew this. This nugget is going to save you. I promise. You're gonna be so thankful to know this. I wish I did. I wish somebody told me. Well, it is what it is. This is really awesome. Good to know. Now we will look at some other properties of layers. Let's go back to our main layer. And let's go back to our little heart here. When you have a layer selected, here's the end that we talked about a little bit before. When you click on it, we talked about changing the opacity of the layer, which is really cool, right? But there's a lot more other stuff to it. There's different layer modes. If you know about layer modes, feel free to skip this lesson. But if you don't, I just wanted to briefly cover them. They are grouped by different qualities, like darken, lighten, contrast, difference, and color. And each mode affects the layer in a different way. Some of them darken, lighten, contrast, difference, exclusion, and stuff like that, and color. They are all used for very, very different things, and honestly, you just have to play around to see which ones you like the most, and you can always go back to normal. Or if you like this, but you think that maybe it should be less, you can change the opacity, and we'll also change everything about this. Layers are really amazing, and if I could just give you a nugget of advice, then overlay is awesome for darkening stuff. Multiply is awesome for darkening stuff. Screen is awesome for lightening stuff. Like, these are my favorites. So if I could pick one out of each, in darken that would be multiply, in lighten that would be screen, in contrast that would be overlay. I don't use difference, and in color I like color and hue. So I think that could be really useful, and we will go in depth when we talk about different ways to paint, different techniques to painting. We will go back to the layers. I just wanted to make sure you're aware of their existence, of the layer modes. And that's all. That is all for layers. I hope this lesson didn't take too long, and maybe I hope you learned something new. If you have any other softwares, you probably know all this stuff already, but if you don't, then this is like really helpful to know. I'll see you in the next lesson. Bye bye.